Well, in our first story, for the last month, residents of Siko in the Volta region have been forced to seek shelter in makeshift structures and sometimes in the open. At least 200 homes have collapsed following the spillage of the Akosombo and Pond dams, as well as the overflow of the Volta River. Godwin Asidiba visits the community, bringing first-hand reports on the challenges faced by the affected residents.
Their homes were submerged in water and later collapsed. Now, most of them do not have a place to lay their heads, so they do gather in this compound to hold body and soul together. I'm sure you can clearly see some mosquito nets that have been mounted here with mats on the floor, with children and kids as young as 2 and 3 years old seated here with sadness drawn all over their faces. They have been telling me that ever since their buildings collapsed, they have no homes to lay their heads. So they do gather here at night, spend nights here, do have good conversations just to be able to sustain themselves throughout their nights and the pain that they do go through. I have been speaking to some of them, and their parents tell me that most of the kids here are battling mosquito bites at night, even though they have mosquito nets here that protects them.
The whole experience is that within these days, I'm in my room, and unfortunately, I woke up in the dawn to come and urinate. And before I get out from the room, I've seen that all my buildings have collapsed. And when I turn back, I've seen that they are in the water. Yes. And in fact, it pains me, but I have nothing to do about this. So please, I'm pleading that the government will help me so that I can take care of my building, because right now I'm a student. I don't know how to get money and build this thing again. The water come and destroy everything in our house. So we are suffering. We just need help. We need them to help us for our building. This is where we are sleeping now. So we need help. We want them to help us now.
So are you here because your building collapsed?
Yes.
So how long have you been sleeping outside?
We are here almost a month now.
I will stay on this particular issue. And Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh clashed with some members of Parliament on the Minority Caucus after he attempted to justify the recent controlled spillage of the Akosombo Dam due to excess water. Now, the minister, in an address to Parliament, absolved the Volta River Authority from blame, adding that residents and MPs were engaged ahead of the spillage.
The minister in his address absolved the Volta River Authority VRA of any blame in the damage caused by the flooding following the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. The energy minister told Parliament the spillage needed to be done to save the dam and avert an otherwise more devastating outcome.
It is never true that there's a point mark for VRA to spill. What is true is that there's a point mark for the dam integrity, which VRA works towards, not breaking that point mark. The Speaker, what has happened this year, and I can say that going forward, nobody can stand here or anywhere and say it won't happen again.
Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh mentioned that residents and MPs were engaged ahead of the spillage. He also disclosed that the VRA had provided relief items to MPs to be given to the affected constituents. MP for Pru East, Dr. Kwabena Donko, drew the attention of the House to the devastation visited on communities along the upper parts of the dam.
Our brothers south of the dam have been victims of the spillage effect of the flood. The flooding has been catastrophic for those of us north of the dam. And for those of us north of the dam, the flooding started as far back as in June, July.
MP for Tema West, Carlos Ahinkra, and MP for Yape Kusogo, John Dinapo, also took turns to contribute.
If VRA hadn't taken the decision they took to get us where we are now, and that dam broke, the Speaker, from Akosombo to Tema was going to be submerged underwater.
An interministerial committee has been constituted to address the havoc emanating from the spillage of the dam. And I'm saying that even from day one, when you do that, you are limiting the focus. And I thought that government would have done much, much more.
MP for North Tong Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa took a strong exception to claims from the minister that MPs were engaged and that the VRA had provided relief items to MPs.
We are told that before VRA officials spilled, members of parliament were consulted, were part of the stakeholders consulted. I can speak for myself. I was never invited to any meeting. I was never consulted. We have had enough. We are down. We are traumatized. We have lost everything. The last thing we will countenance are blatant falsehoods. We will not accept it.
The comments of the North Tong MP were, however, challenged by Impriasu MP Davis Ansah Opoku, who asserted that Okudzeto-Ablakwa had received relief items. The comments of the North Tong MP were, however, challenged by Impriasu MP Davis Ansah Opoku, who asserted that Okudzeto-Ablakwa had received relief items. This threw the House into chaos beyond the control of the second Deputy Speaker, Andrew Esiama, who was presiding.
No, he said, I have personally received relief items from the Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, this is a serious matter. My chiefs and people, the displaced persons, are going to come and ask the items you received from the Finance Minister, where is it? These are serious allegations, which we cannot take it lightly.
Come and withdraw that statement. With respect to Okudzeto, he is insistent that he hasn't received it.
When tempers calmed, other MPs took turns to contribute.
Meanwhile, Energy Minister Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh has shied away from answering questions on whether the affected residents of the dam spillage will adequately be compensated. Now, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh says the assessment of the situation is still being done by the Government Interministerial Committee, which must be allowed to do its job.
I would never answer for things I'm not responsible for. I said the government has set up an interministerial committee that is still working. We are not out of the doldrums yet. And that when we finish, Parliament can inquire from them their reports and how they behave. We will do things that are necessary, but it's a committee that has to decide. I think that we have a difficult time because where the flooding has been carried every year, upstream north, there's a resettlement packages that are sent to them every year. And as soon as the water resides, the human beings go back to the site. And it's not because of anything, it's because of economic livelihood. They're either fishermen who settle around the coast, or they are farmers who want the best land, which is found where the water is. So it's a difficult thing that we have to do. It's a really, really difficult thing. One of the chiefs said yesterday that this is not the first time his village or his area has been flooded. But every time, he even advocated that we should build them shelters so that, because he knows that the people will go back to the areas that they will flood, so that when it's not flooding, the people will come, or when it is flooding, they will come to the areas, and when it is receded, they'll go. So it's a difficult thing. You provide such shelters for difficult places. So I think the experts will have to deal with it, and we are not experts.
Now, away from the flood, government says the investigative, prosecutorial and judicial agencies must be held accountable for incidents of reported attacks on journalists. Now, available data, according to government, suggests an increase in attacks on journalists in the country. Now, a statement on the floor of Parliament, the Information Minister, Kojo Nkrumah, said mechanisms rolled out in ensuring accountability to report attacks on journalists have not been successful.
Mr. Speaker, under the function of accountability, the mechanism has not been very successful, I regret to say. The need to hold the investigative, prosecutorial and judicial agencies accountable for the incidents reported to them cannot be overemphasized. In some instances, the Ministry of Information has had to intervene and make direct reports ourselves to the Ghana Police Service, as well as demand accountability on the investigation, prosecution and punishment of perpetrators. Holding the judiciary and prosecution accountable on a sustained basis must be the norm.
To one of our headline stories now, the Chief Justice is expected to appoint a new judge to replace the judge hearing the case between the Office of the Special Prosecutor and former Sanitation Minister Cecilia Dapa. Now, Justice Edward Chum had been hearing the confirmation application by the OSP against Cecilia Dapa after obtaining a warrant to sit during the legal vacation. Lord Iduasare reports.
Justice Edward Chum, the substantive judge on the case, is now due for his annual leave, having sat through the cases during the legal vacation. When the case was called on Wednesday, November 8, the presiding judge called the parties into his chambers for a brief meeting, after which the hearing was adjourned to November 29. Present in court was Cecilia Dapa, her husband, and their lawyers, as well as prosecutors from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Sources close to the parties revealed to the media that the case at the next adjourned date may be presided over by a new judge due to the absence of Justice Edward Chum. The Chief Justice Gertrude Tokonu had earlier declined a petition by the Office of the Special Prosecutor to remove Justice Chum from hearing all its cases before him over alleged prejudice in favor of the former Sanitation Minister. On October 25, shortly after the Financial and Economic Court 2 had adjourned the trial awaiting the decision of the Chief Justice regarding the petition by the OSP, the investigative institution posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, that the Chief Justice had refused to accede to its request. The OSP is yet to move its motion to stay proceedings until the determination of the motion of certiorari at the Supreme Court to quash an earlier decision of the Accra High Court, which granted an application of an abridgment of time filed by Cecilia Dapa. Lord Iduasare, TV3 News, Accra.
Now, on to some more stories. Some members on the Health Committee of Parliament say the Majority Leader's comments that the sponsors of the La General Hospital reconstruction have withheld the funds are contradictory to that of the Health Minister. A member on the committee, Dr. Sebastian Sandari, says Parliament will only take the minister's word. Meanwhile, residents are calling on government to hand over the project to the La community to mobilize funds for reconstruction of the hospital.
It looks like residents of La and its environs will have to wait a little longer or probably forget about the reconstruction of their hospital, which was demolished somewhere July 2020. Now, yesterday, the Majority Leader in Parliament, Osachemen Sabonsu, indicated that funds that have been secured from sponsors have been withheld because Ghana went to the IMF. But the residents here are complaining the struggles they go through to access health care.
This facility was serving the whole community, Labadi, and the suburb areas like Osuta, Shinungwa, and even some part of Laboni. And if something like this is being demolished without any alternative, then we are all in for the doom.
We're badly hurt. Talking about the pregnant women, there's that, the children and all that. You have to travel long distances, either to a police hospital, Snake Hospital, or Lakeman, which is very far away here.
Some residents want the government to hand over the land so they can mobilize resources to construct the hospital.
Government should just lay its hands off the land and leave the land to the La people. We are going to engage in a self-help project to construct the hospital for ourselves. And we have a well laid down plan. I'm talking about the coalition, which we have discussed with our town folks. They are ready and willing to support.
Meanwhile, some members of the Health Committee of Parliament say they cannot take the Majority Leader for his word, adding that the Health Minister has been summoned to brief the House on the matter.
We have about 2 or 3 government officials giving contradictory statements on that. The Minister of Health, who says that it's because contractors were demanding extra funding and therefore they had to mobilize. But he assured that they were ready to begin the construction of the hospital. Then the Presidential Advisor on Health also stated that they had finished all necessary negotiations and the funding was ready to start the project. Then yesterday, the Majority Leader also stated that it's due to IMF conditionality. So the question asks, who is telling us the truth?
Dr. Sebastian Sandari wonders why the government would demolish the hospital in the first place when it was not ready to commence and complete the new one.
Government has not placed priority on the La General Hospital project, which is unfortunate. The people are suffering. they have the right to access quality health care. And we think that if we have to achieve universal health coverage, then they have every right to have a hospital. And the question it asks is, why did they demolish the existing facility when they didn't have funding?
Let's do some stories on road accidents. The new data shows certain areas in Accra are more prone to accidents, recording 18 deaths over the last 24 months. The Aveno Junction and Opebia intersections along the Liberation Road are the two high-risk fatal crash locations. Grace Hamwajiman has been to some of these hotbeds and has found this report.
Accra road safety reports focused on road usage in the metropolis with an emphasis on safety and fatalities. The report gives a list of the top 10 intersections in Accra that are most fatal.
Before we got here, we made pit stops at the other two risky intersections, the Aveno intersection and also the La Paz Akweteman intersection, which are 2 and 3 on the report, and then Opebia, which is the #1 fatal intersection in Accra.
Road users at the Opebia intersection tell me it takes extra caution to be on the road because of the behavior of drivers.
When the traffic is, the red is on, it's 1 minute. Yes, let me say 1 minute. So you have to calculate it in your head and know how it goes. And then when you are selling to, you see motor. The motorbikers are the one causing the fear here, but the drivers, when they are coming, it's cool because they know the red is on. So they have to come with normal pressure and stuff here.
Traders and hawkers who ply their businesses here say they live in constant fear due to the incidents of accidents on the stretch.
It's very frightening here. If you don't take precaution, you will easily be knocked by a vehicle.
The presence of the physically challenged and the risk involved cannot be overlooked.
From those who are in wheelchairs to those who are using clutches to those who are literally crawling in the middle of the road, you find all sorts of people who are physically challenged here. They tell me when they are coming, they say a prayer to God to protect them, go through the day, and that is enough for them.
Experts blame the prevalent crashes on a myriad of factors.
The main underlying factor here has to do with speeding. In the event where some of these drivers realize that there's no police officer to direct or regulate traffic flow at these intersections, once they get to the intersection, it's like everybody wants to have their own right of way. It's like jungle cruise. Everybody wants to just rush in. And
he has been professing some solutions.
Once we come together and work towards ensuring that we execute or implement some of these speed calming measures, we'll be able to reduce the number of traffic crashes and these fatalities drastically.
In as much as the number of road accidents have declined in the last year, road safety advocates say there is the need for a lot more measures to be put in place to ensure the road is safe for every user, from driver to pedestrian. Grace Hamwajiman, TV3 News, Opebia.
And that's our wrap up the 6 a.m. news here on TV3. My name is Judith Brown. We'll take a short break and we're back with the rest of New Day.